we go. That works. I just have to spin it around. Oh, yep, there we go. Hello. Everyone say hello. Hi. Okay, that was fun. We are answering a couple of questions on the board. Basically, we are looking at the challenges of the Articles of Confederation. I'm looking for two specific challenges from the Articles of Confederation, and those are right here. And I will go ahead and post these questions on our teams just so that we have them. Let's see. In the middle, girls, you will see the words limited government. I want you to put down 4 particular ideas of limited government. If you're confused about what I mean by ideas, these are ways that we limit the government. They're concepts. For example, one would be the social contract. That would be an idea of limited government. One would be the social contract. And then lastly, you don't have to do those yet. I'm going to look at those with you and explain them to you. But let's see, name 2 challenges of the articles. And I am posting these questions in your teams just so that you have them. Okay. Social contract. And then democracy. Okay, so that's in there. All right, this is recording, right? Yeah. Got it. All right then. Yeah.
Do you know what we're gonna have to bring home for tomorrow?
Yeah, you'll just have to bring home like your copybook and that book.
Okay.
But that's already probably home, so we're good. Okay, guys. So let's look at. There we go. The challenges of the articles. Okay. What were the 2 major challenges of the Articles of Confederation? What 2 major points? What 2 major points were we looking at when we looked at the Articles of Confederation? Name one.
Governmental legal system, so like
Excellent, right? Did not have the power to tax. That is a major key of the Articles of Confederation, that they did not have the power to tax. Did not have the power to tax. We're going to call this the lack of tax enforcement powers. And Mina mentioned a really good word to describe the Articles. We describe the Articles of Confederation as weak. As weak. The Articles of Confederation was our nation's first try at a government, right? It was our nation's first try at government. They are coming from a period of time during the American Revolution where they were under British rule. And they were angry under British rule because they felt that the British were violating their rights as citizens. They felt that the British monarch was not protecting their natural rights. We know that if your rights are not being protected, you have the right to replace your government. You can overthrow your government and replace it with one that will protect you, because the people are the main source of power in a government. The people give consent to their leaders. Now, with that being said, why were they very cautious Why were they very cautious when they were creating a central or national government? Why were the states very cautious when creating a central or national government? Taylor?
But they don't want them to have too much power become a tyranny.
Excellent, right? They were afraid of tyranny. They were afraid of what would happen with a central government. They were afraid of what would happen if a government became strong enough to overthrow the people because they were afraid of losing their rights again. So they purposefully created a national government like the Articles of Confederation. They purposely created the Articles of Confederation and made it weak. They said, listen, we will have a national government, but we're not giving it much power. That's how this worked originally. But then we found out that it wasn't working out too well. They didn't have the power to tax, meaning they couldn't fund social programs. So what's a big government without any money? It's nothing. No question? Now the second part about the challenges of the articles. What was another way that we saw that it was too weak to survive or to work effectively? Amelie?
Well, there was no military.
So
There was no president.
there was no executive branch, okay? There was no judicial branch. So there's nobody to enforce the laws, and there was nobody to resolve conflicts. That's a good one too. I'm looking for a particular event. Everyone's, yep, go ahead. Shays Rebellion, right? Shays Rebellion. This is significant because the farmers couldn't pay their taxes. The farmers couldn't pay their taxes and they were losing their farms. The farms were seizing their governments because if you don't have enough money to pay your taxes, the government starts taking your stuff. So what happened here with Shays Rebellion is all those farmers got together and decided to storm the courthouses, decided to storm the city hall. The state could not fight it, so they called on the national government to help. They're like, what do you want us to do? We have no power. We don't have the power to do anything. So Shays Rebellion proved that they had a lack of centralized, and girls, when I say centralized, right, I'm talking about like the central government. The central government. They had a lack of centralized military power. So this kind of proved to them, hey, if we cannot bust down a group of farmers that are trying to revolt against the state of Massachusetts, how would we handle a foreign attack? We can't. These are the two reasons that we saw the challenge. These were the two challenges of the articles. This is why it wasn't going to work out. Did not have the power to tax, and then Shays Rebellion lacked a centralized military power. But the whole taxing thing, you're like, what's the big deal if the states are running themselves anyways, right? Well, the centralized government still had to run. It had to operate, and it couldn't do anything like this, could not perform simple government functions because they didn't have the power to tax. You want to know how the colonies paid the national government taxes? It said that each state could pay into the national government as the state saw necessary and fit. If you showed up here and St. Basil said, you know what, you should pay your tuition, but like, whenever you can do it. Don't worry about it if you can't, but whenever you can, whenever you see fit, pay your tuition. How many of you are going to pay your tuition? Nobody put your hand up because nobody would. Nobody with a brain would, okay? That's what happened here. This was when we saw, like, okay, we have to make a change. The Shays Rebellion. Okay, now let's go over here to limited government. Girls, what does it mean to limit the government? I cannot break this computer. Mr. Smith will kill me. Hold on. That's on video. Oh my God. Okay. Yes.
To like limit power to make sure no one has too much power in government, so that like they're not taking over people.
Yep. A speed limit when you're driving prevents you from going too fast, right? Prevents you from going too fast. A limit on government power halts you at a certain point and says, you cannot go beyond this point. You do not have the power to do all of this. You can go 10 miles per hour, passing legislation, helping a bill become a law, but the legislative branch, right, does not resolve conflict. That's what the judicial branch is for. Each branch of government has powers that are limited. Now, I had already said that the social contract was one of them. The social contract is a way that we limit the government. It's a concept of limited government. What is another one?
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances. We're still learning about these, so we don't know them entirely, but can anybody name a way that checks and balances exist in our government? Can anybody name an example of a way that one branch checks another branch? Yeah?
The executive branch, the president can veto of the.
Excellent. The president can veto a bill that is pushed through the legislative branch, okay? Before, laws, when they're being made, are called bills. And then when they get passed through different branches of government, they become laws. Bill becomes a law. Now, checks and balances. The legislative branch, both houses, what are the houses in the legislative branch?
The Senate and the House of Representatives.
Excellent, the Senate and House of Representatives. Bills have to pass through both, with the majority approval through both. Then they get to the executive branch, and the president either signs it into law or strikes it down, and it's just dead. Unless Congress does what to the veto? President can strike down a veto and say this is not becoming a law. Congress is like, wait 1 second, we have a way around this. What can Congress do if the president vetoes a law? Anybody know? An idea?
Can't they like veto this veto?
So, yep, we call this an override. We call this an override. We're going to go over this more later. I just wanted to give you guys an idea. Congressional override. That's where they override the president's veto. They need a 3/4 majority to do it. So sometimes it's hard. It's hard to do that. So now we have these forms of democracy. Now we didn't look at these in particular yet, but these kind of come into play. These come into play with Brutus and Federalists, 10 and 51. So with elite democracy, girls, when you see the word elite, what? Did I put marker on my thing? Whatever. When you see the word elite, what do you think?
Above, like the best.
Above the best, okay, maybe the highest in society. So elite democracy focuses on limited participation in government. This idea of elite democracy, limited participation in government, we don't want the masses to participate in government. We don't want every single person in the democracy to have equal say in the democracy. Why? Quite frankly, politicians like James Madison thought that the people, the masses, were too stupid. He said that we should elect representatives to serve us and make decisions on our behalf because the public, the masses, cannot be trusted. Limited participation in government is limited to the elite in society, the educated, the wealthy. That's that concept. Now, in participatory democracy, what do you guys think that this is about? Participatory democracy. Do we think that this is going to be like elite democracy? No, because you see the word participatory. Now, basically, this just says that there should be broad participation in democracy. Okay? And then we have pluralist democracy. Basically, with pluralist democracy, what we have is group-based activism. I'm going to move in a second. Basically, it's people that aren't in the government. It's people that aren't in the government that want there to be a change in the government. So it's like, for example, like Save the Rainforest. That's not a branch of government. It's Save the Rainforest wants to make sure that we do things to protect the environment. Let's think. These are examples of pluralist democracy, right? A group-based activism by non-governmental interests that are striving, that's that word, girls, striving, for an impact on political decision-making. They want their governmental officials to make decisions that would benefit their small interest groups. We still have them around today. For example, any type of activism really is focused on government change, okay? Any type. Organizations that are pro-choice, meaning a woman's right to choose to terminate her pregnancy, or pro-life, meaning that, the organization that thinks that women, thinks that all life is sacred, right? Both of those organizations will try to encourage government officials, hey, be on our side. This is why we believe this. We think you should believe it too. You should pass laws that reflect our idea. Mina?
So political parties aren't in this.
So they are, but in the sense that if I'm someone who is lobbying or trying to get people to agree with and like push legislation for pro-choice, then I'm probably going to try to lobby the Democratic Party because that is one of their values. If I'm someone who is pro-life, I'm going to try to lobby or rally the Republican Party because that's one of their values, right? So political parties do play a role, but go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I just was wondering, so pro-life and pro-choice, so aren't the beliefs based religiously, like for pro-lifers, predominantly are Christian, so if they change that law, isn't that, again, like if it has to do with your religion and your personal belief system, it's freedom of religion, freedom of speech in this country. So isn't that technically a violation?
It's a good question, and I think that that's an argument posed it's an argument that's probably posed by conservatives, right? Because think about it, that's a way to get your ideas recognized, right? By theory, evidence, things like that. If you want someone to take you seriously, you have to come with the facts. So you could say that religion plays a role in that, right? And you could say that if you make it legal, if you make abortion legal or keep it legal, then this could be violating a religion. But you're thinking the other way.
I meant that pro-life, if you make it illegal for women to have a choice to go get an abortion, isn't that it's the pro-lifers that's determined by like their personal religious beliefs?
Yes.
Just as it's the personal belief that, hey, I want to get an abortion. Like, so wouldn't it be a violation of our personal, like, freedom of religion, freedom of speech?
If you were to outlaw abortion on the basis of religion?
Yes. Wasn't that?
So those are arguments that are made, right? And it could be argued that way. So right now in the United States, abortion is legal. In many states. Because you don't see anything about abortion in the Constitution. It was never in the Constitution. So therefore, if a law is not in the Constitution, it varies by state. So you will see that in some states there are different abortion laws. But in that situation where you said, like, perhaps that could be the argument, you're right. So if you think about it, if you were to outlaw abortion because all human life is sacred according to God, and according to the Bible, you are making a law that applies to everyone, even if there's only a small section of that population that is religious. So that is a good way to look at it. Like, you cannot pass a law on the basis of religion you can only protect religion. So if you want to be Hindu, you want to be Muslim, you want to be Christian, and you want to be Jewish, everybody's allowed to do that. But I can't pass a law that says, everybody has to, all men in the United States have to wear a yarmulke because Brie is Jewish and it's offensive to her that others don't, right? Everyone has their own life choices, and they are protected by the Constitution. Got it? But yeah, no, so arguments like that can be made. However, in that sense, religion doesn't apply like that.
But if they did pass the law outlawing abortions, that wouldn't be seen as, that wouldn't be seen as a violation, like.
If they outlawed it?
Yeah.
Because it varies state by state, legislatures can do what they want. Like the state of Texas can ban abortions after 2 months of pregnancy, and that's just the state of Texas. If the whole legislature of Texas agrees with it, then they can. Whereas, if the state of Pennsylvania wants to allow abortions up to the day before delivery, then they can do that too. You know what I mean? It varies state by state because it's not already stated in the Constitution. And we're going to be looking at the articles of the Constitution because they show us, they show us different things like the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and that any law made cannot violate the law that's previously stated in the Constitution. But each state has the power to make their own Constitution as well, as long as none of the laws in the state constitutions go back on a law previously stated in the Constitution. So this is really good. I'm glad that we did this. We need one more example of limited government. We need 2 more examples of limited government. Someone give me one. Gather, Jan. My favorite! What does this mean, guys? What does popular sovereignty mean? What does popular? What are we talking about? The who? The people. And what's sovereignty? What does sovereignty mean? Go ahead, Lucia. Power. So when we put them together, we have power of the people. So basically that government power and government comes from the people. And what's one way that we can practice popular sovereignty? By doing what? Everybody. Voting. Good. Give me one more. Give me one more idea of democracy. Go ahead, Ron.
The federal system?
The federal system. Good, right? Separating the powers. Give me another one. We were all born with them. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's just your natural rights. Natural rights. All right, guys, good job. We're going to take some notes. I'm not sure how much time we have left. Correct. All right. Okay, so on there. Use my connections. Okay. Touchpad, mouse, printer, scanners. Adriana, do me a favor. Oh, never mind. I found it. Okay. I just got this laptop on Friday and I haven't used it yet on the projector, so this is great. Oh, I had to sneeze, but now I can't. Okay, everything's fine. For homework tonight, you guys are gonna have to read, but that would be too bad. Let's see. Is this on yet? What are we waiting for? 25th birthday? Let's go. Change production mode. Never mind, we're doing it right. Done. Done, done. No, done. Okay. Go. Sophia's gonna watch this and be like, what is wrong with my teacher? I'm sorry, Sophia. Okay. What is the last note that you have in your copybook? This one? Yeah. Excellent. If I can get this slideshow to play. For the love of all things holy, come on. Current slide. Okay. That's not what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. Excellent. Okay. Is this, we have this, right? We talked about the federal system. Good. Go. Getting so sad. We're seeing this, right? Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're not going to do that way then. We're just going to do it this way. What in tarnation? Why isn't this even full screen? Is it because this is here? I'm confused. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, the Anti-Federalists, we know who they are, right? Those are the guys who, these are the guys who oppose the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists, can you guys like read that a little bit? Even though it's wacky. These are the Anti-Federalists. We have George Mason, Patrick Henry, and we have Samuel Adams. Anti-Federalists, they desired a federal government that was more like the Articles of the Confederation, which was funny because they were arguing for a true federal government. And now this is ironic because under the Articles of Confederation, when you see the word confederation, you also see the word confederal. Okay, you see the words confederal. Now, you have federal government systems and then you have confederal government systems. In a federal government system like the one that we have in the US, the government has levels, right? It has levels, like cake. The national government or the federal government shares their powers with the state governments. They share power. They share power. So here we have the idea that a central government shares power with regional governments. And by regional governments, in this example, in the US, states, right? Whereas in a confederal system, the central government gets its power from smaller regional governments. The Articles of Confederation had a confederal government because they were too afraid to give the central government too much power. The only powers that they got came from the state governments. Therefore, the state government came first. Whereas in a federal system, the central government is the overarching source of power, but they ultimately share power with the states. So confederal is the system where the central government gets its power from the regional governments. So the states say, you know what, central government, you can do this, this, and this, but you can't do this. You can, do X, Y, and Z, but you can't collect taxes or raise a military. Instead, with the federal government, everything's split up, okay? We have the national government who kind of comes first, but state governments that also have rights and responsibilities and powers. The Articles of Confederation, this is weird because the anti-federalists are desiring a federal government that is more like the Articles, bless you. Meanwhile, the Articles of Confederation had a legislative branch and that was it. This is ironic because the Federalists are arguing for a true federal government. They're arguing to get this back, but they don't even realize it. Their values are more supportive of this. They feared that a single executive, like the president, right? We see executive means head guy in charge. They feared that an executive would have too much power, kind of like a king, kind of like a monarchy. That's what they were afraid of. They also were too afraid of Congress's power to tax because they didn't want to lose all their money, right? They're a little nervous because Great Britain just shook them by the ankles and took all their money for the Stamp Act, for the Townshend Tax, and then for the Intolerable Acts, right? They put taxes on all those goods. Well, now the colonies are nervous, the states are nervous. They're like, well, if we give them the power to tax, who's to say that the same thing won't just happen again? Who's to say that this central government won't just tax us the same way that Britain did? What are we doing? That was the fear. They didn't want them to have the power to tax. They were afraid of that if they had an army, that the central government could easily take over. And they thought it was a little scary that in the Constitution, the government can do anything necessary and proper. Now, I think you guys might have read about the necessary and proper clause a while ago in your book. So if I leave you with anything, we're going to go over the necessary and proper clause really quickly. Is this over now or in 5 minutes? Okay. The necessary and proper clause. Let's come on. The necessary and proper clause. Now, does this come up right here? Okay. This is also known as the elastic clause. Girls, what is elastic? What does it mean? You know Elastiman from The Incredibles? What can he do? What's this called? He's like, he has the power to do what? What's he have the power to do? Begins with an S. Mina. Stretch. He has the power to stretch. We call the necessary and proper clause the elastic clause because it stretches the power of the federal government. How? Basically, the government has the power. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. Okay? This basically means, guys, that the government can pass any laws that they think are necessary and proper to upholding the Constitution. Upholding the Constitution. Basically, this necessary and proper clause it grants implicit powers to the central government. Okay, and this can be found in Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution. Now, the anti-federalists were afraid of this for obvious reasons. The government can do whatever it wants, right? The government can do whatever it wants. The idea is that you don't have to be fearful of a limited government if it's truly limited. That's the idea, right? That's the idea here. So when we're looking at implicit powers, we're looking at implied powers, meaning, okay, well, the government has the power to, run the post service, right? The postal system. The government has the right to establish post offices for mail. That was true. That was true back then. What about now, right? We have the power to make postal service offices. The world has changed. But now the post office has websites, phone numbers you can call. This didn't exist back then. But because we have the power to, because the central government has the power to create a post office, it is implied or implicit for them to make a website too. If it's going to help them carry out that power to make a post office and send mail throughout the U.S., if it is necessary and proper for carrying out this foregoing power, which would be creating a post office, then they can create a website. It's going to help them carry out this power. It's necessary and proper for them to have a website if everyone else has a website. If you can phone Applebee's and call them and pick up an order for delivery, then you should be able to call the post office too. It is necessary and proper for carrying out that power of creating a post office. Does this make sense? But we can also see how this could make anti-federalists nervous. The government can do whatever it wants, essentially. Okay, so that was another fear. They feared this necessary and proper clause in Article 1 of the Constitution. Are we okay? It's 8:55, are we done? Okay, are our brains exploding in the good way? All right. Today we revisited some topics that we had previously discussed. Tonight you will be reading, what are you gonna read? All right. Tonight I might have you, you're gonna do reading, and I might have you do an activity too, but tomorrow I'm going to be putting up a video for your classwork, so if that's okay, girls, just you can watch the video and take notes on it, just like we would in class. We'll go over those notes on Wednesday when you're in class. But basically, what we're gonna be tackling next, big time, are the articles of the Constitution. Right, Article 1, Article 2, how the branches get their power and stuff like that, all right? Any questions about that? Any questions about what we looked at today? Okay. All right, I'm gonna end this little video. How do I do this? What am I doing? Do you have your quiz next?
Did you say scale of number?